Good morning, Westminster. My name is Boyd Taylor, and I'm here to talk about the fall edition of the Westminster Writers Journal and to visit with one of our contributors. As you probably know by now, the Writers Journal is a platform for creative expression, poetry, nonfiction, memoirs, and fiction by Westminster residents. Our spring edition was a great success. However, copies of it are still available at the little store if you want one. And if you didn't pick one up, well, you should try it. The fall edition will have, it's even larger. It'll have 45 contributors, Westminster residents, and it'll be arriving, Amazon willing, in mid-November. So keep your fingers crossed. My guest today is one of those 45 writers, 0Frede. Martha's been a resident at Westminster since the Windsor building opened in 2012, I think it was. She was an original resident in the Windsor building. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning.
We arrived here about the same time, I think. There were people coming in, 4 or 5 a week, I believe, there for a while, or maybe more than that, but the halls were crowded with people moving in. New neighbors. It was an interesting time for us, and I imagine it was for you too.
It was a change.
Yeah, it was a change, yes. So how are you managing in these strange times?
Oh, not terribly well.
Yeah.
Although they certainly take good care of us here at the old folks home.
Yeah, we have a really good staff here, and I think they're dedicated, and I think that the precautions have been about as good as they could be. Everybody will remember to follow the rules, but we've been fortunate that we haven't had any really serious cases of the virus here. So we're lucky to be here. You were trained as a clinical psychologist. Has that helped you understand what was going on with this seclusion and what we're going through?
I probably don't understand it any better than anyone else.
I imagine you do, because you had a long period of practice as a clinical psychologist. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. I believe you're an Austin native. Were you born in Austin, or did you move here at an early age?
I was born in a very small town in Arkansas.
In Arkansas? What
Yes.
town was that?
Marvel, and I like to say they named it that after I was born there, but that's not true.
Well, it could have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you had a lot of interesting people who've come from Arkansas, including a president of the United States, right? So how old were you when you arrived in Austin?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
Would you repeat the question?
Yeah. How old were you when you arrived in Austin?
12.
12 years old. And you were a fairly precocious child. If you graduated from Austin High School, I believe.
Yes.
And then was a freshman at UT before your 16th birthday?
Yes. I finished a semester before I was 16.
Yeah. That must have been an exciting time for you. Was it intimidating at all to be that young on the big campus?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would think so. I thought I was a young graduate, but I was between my 16th and 17th birthday, so you were younger than me. So what was the campus like in those days?
Well, it was tumultuous because it was wartime, and there were very few men left, except the ones who were in the naval programs that were based at UT. And so anyway, everything was very strange.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. And you circled around the various options for a course of study, and if I understand right, you ended up in bacteriology. Is that true? Or you? So what was your degree? What was your degree in at UT?
In bacteriology with a minor in chemistry.
Yeah. What drew you to that? Do you remember?
Yes. When I started out in home economics, which turned out to be a disastrous major for me, I thought, oh, well, you know, if you're going to end up getting married, well, you might as well get a degree in home ec and then you'll know all this good stuff. Well, the professors in home ec are picky. And so after taking clothing and making a C, I decided I better get out of that. And so anyway, but one of the requirements was bacteriology, because if you were going to go into food, you know, you need to know that. And so anyway, once I started taking that, well, I loved it. And it seemed a lot more intellectually challenging.
In home ec.
Right.
I don't know, what do they call, they still have that department, but I think it's not called home economics anymore. It's got some more professional sounding name, I think.
Yeah. I think they call it human ecology.
Human ecology?
Yeah.
That sounds reasonable.
That
Yeah,
sounds fancy.
probably right. So, so when you graduated with this degree in bacteriology, what happened next?
I went to work for the state health department.
Oh, here in Austin.
Yes.
Uh-huh. And how long were you there?
I was there up until 2 months before my oldest child was born, which was unheard of at the time, but the state got insurance, health insurance. And so
Really?
I had to stay until I qualified for that.
Yeah. Well, that was not many employers, private employers, had health insurance at that time, I believe.
So it was a great thing when the state got it, and I had some really strange clothes to wear instead of my usual lab
coat
and things. Well, I had great big smocks that covered me up.
Well, you must. I guess you left an impression on the state health department.
I'm not sure about that, but anyway, it was a great place to work, and all sorts of interesting things going on.
Such as
different interesting professionals coming through to visit the department that I got to meet from like Letterly Laboratories, and then one time they were having a typhus outbreak in Hallettsville, Texas, and I got to go to help immunize all the people there. And
really?
This guy from Letterly Laboratories came down. They had made the vaccine, and so we stayed in this probably the only hotel in town. And I got the bridal suite because it was the only one that had a private bath, and I was the only woman.
You were the only woman in the whole crew?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got the bridal suite. Is that what I understood you said?
Yeah, I got the bridal suite because it had its bathroom.
Had a bathroom. Oh dear, no wonder they had a typhus outbreak. But that was pretty late for typhus in Texas, wasn't it? I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah. But
I would think not, since they were just getting a vaccine.
Yeah. So were you a little So did you have the vaccine before you went down, or were you just exposed yourself?
I think we all got the vaccine.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a safe trip. When in that whole time, when did you meet your future husband?
I met Ralph at, I'm trying to think, I met him in May of 46, and then we got married in December of 46. So anyway, I met him at a drunken brawl in the wine cellar at what is now the clay pit, but then was the Old Seville. And it was a welcome home party for someone, not Ralph, but he found out about it and came. And so anyway, I was smoking a cigar, and he thought that was very interesting.
You were doing what? You were smoking a cigar?
Yes.
You were in costume?
Someone bet me that I couldn't.
Yeah, yeah. So that naturally attracted his attention.
Absolutely.
He was a returning naval officer, I
Yeah.
believe.
This was the first time he'd been in civilian clothes.
Oh my, oh my. So you all hit it off right away?
Well, that was May, and we got married in December, so that's pretty quick.
That is pretty quick, yeah. Well, um, so you married, moved to Houston, I believe. Did you go directly to, no, Ralph had other positions before you went to Houston, didn't he?
We moved to Jefferson City, Missouri.
Missouri, yeah.
There we moved to Houston.
And he was involved with the YM with a nonprofit in Missouri.
Yeah, National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis.
Oh yeah,
That's
Leo, yeah.
Moved to Missouri, and then when we moved to Houston, he was at the University of Houston, and then at Baylor College of Medicine, where he was the vice president.
Yeah, at the Baylor College of Medicine. Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's where he spent the rest of his career until he retired. Yeah. So at some point in that time, that after you moved to Houston, you decided you wanted to go back to school, and so describe to me that decision. How did that come about?
Well, I've just been very interested in child development, and so I started taking some classes, and then I decided I wanted to go further with it, and I was accepted into the clinical program, the program, and they only accepted 7 students out of 300. So it was because I had to go take those undergraduate classes, and so those professors got to know me, and they spoke up for me.
Well, I'm sure they were pleased to have you in their class.
Well, I don't know. It was before older people started going back to school, so it was kind of a rarity.
And were you the only woman in that group as well?
I don't think so.
There may have been another. Yeah. So so you got your PhD and became a clinical psychologist.
Yes.
So I'm a layman. Tell me the difference between a clinical psychologist and just a vanilla psychologist.
Well, they're experimental psychologists, and clinical psychologists shrink brains.
Would you say that again, please?
They shrink brains.
They shrink brains. Okay. Well, I didn't see that in Wikipedia. You're going to have to enlarge on that.
Okay. So anyway, in my clinical practice, I saw people for psychotherapy. I also did evaluations of children who are having some sort of learning disability or problem, and did some marital therapy, and a whole variety of things, which made it a lot more interesting.
So did you tend to specialize in children's issues, children's?
No, but my children's pediatrician said, if you go into private practice, I will help keep you busy, and he did.
He did. So that must have been a satisfying. Must have been excuse me. Go ahead.
Before I went into private practice, I worked for this Great Society program where we were working with poverty level Mexican American families, trying to teach them how to provide a stimulating environment to their young children. So that was very interesting and rewarding.
So that was counseling of the sort, right?
No. We had a program where we had the children come, and then all the mothers came too. And so the mothers learned how to interact with their children by watching another mother work with her child, and we taught them about the different toys that we had and how to use them in a way that would be intellectually stimulating, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that was a Great Society program?
Yes.
Yeah. And so you had done that before you, or was that before you started your second college career, or was that during the same time?
No, that was after I got my PhD.
After you got your PhD.
Yeah, but at the same time I was doing that, I went over and worked at the University of Houston Counseling Center one afternoon a week so that I wouldn't lose my clinical skills while I was doing all that Great Society work.
I see. Well, you had a really satisfying career, I am sure. So after Ralph retired and you two decided to come to Austin, you came directly to Austin after he retired?
Yes.
Did you retire also, or did you continue to practice?
Well, actually, he didn't really retire. He kept doing a lot of consulting work.
Yeah, Ralph did. Yeah.
Yeah, and then twice a month we would go back to Houston, and I would see people there, and he would do some of his consulting work.
I see. Well, let's talk about Ralph a little bit more. I was fortunate enough to get to know him after you moved here. After you moved to Austin, I met him. Well, you and Kitty knew each other, I think, from
the olden days.
Yeah, from the olden days, and then Ralph and I were in Rotary together, and so I enjoyed that time with him.
He is the president of the biggest Rotary club in the world.
He did. The one in downtown, the downtown Houston Rotary Club was the biggest Rotary club in the world.
Yeah.
And he was president when they had to leave the Rice Hotel and move to the Shamrock Hotel, which was on South Main. And he had to deal with all of these Houston downtown businessmen who thought they were moving to Sugarland or somewhere. But he managed to do it. He pulled it off. So that was a great story. But he was active in the foundation, the Rotary Paul Harris Fellow Foundation, and he was always busy with development and people that needed his advice on fundraising and how to build a stronger organization. He was even if he wasn't actively consulting for those people, they were getting free consults from him, I think. So, but what a nice guy. We mentioned his military service. So he was at Normandy, I believe I read.
It was in the first wave of small boats that went and shot off rockets before the invasion.
So he was ahead of the first wave, really. Yeah. Wow.
And
And
then he was in the invasion of southern France, and then went on and went over to the Pacific and was in the Philippines waiting to go invade Japan. But the only complaint he ever had was that it was so boring when they were out at sea and there was nothing to do.
well, that's what military service is. I think it's periods of intense excitement followed by long, long periods of boredom. So I can appreciate that. So your piece for the Writer's Journal deals with Ralph's final years. I found it really, really moving, and I'm sure our residents will also uh, appreciate your sharing those memories with us. So do you want to tell us just a little bit about those final days or final years? It was what, 5, 6 years that he was ill.
Well, he developed Alzheimer's, and uh, over time, he got so that he couldn't speak, which was very frustrating for him and for everyone else. And at first, he was able to write, and then he got so he couldn't write either. And he was always a really good typist from being a journalist, and so I got him a little typewriter that was really easy to use. He finally got it, so he couldn't use that either. So it was very frustrating when he couldn't communicate.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. That had to be. Well, it's a very, as I say, touching and revealing piece that you've given us to share with the residents, and we appreciate it very much, Martha. And as I say, I thankful for the brief time I got to know him before he became ill. But lots of great stories, and he was, I would say, a real gentleman, so a kind and caring person. So I know you miss him. Um, so I want to thank you for being with us today and having a conversation. And to all of you Westminster residents out there, I want to again remind you that the Westminster's Writer's Journal's fall edition will be here in a matter of weeks, and we'll keep you advised. So this is Boyd Taylor saying thank you again, Martha, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. And we'll see you next time. Stay safe.